What's up guys, and welcome back to Tech Plant. Today I'm going to show you how I made these coconut planters, so let's check it out. The only difference between these and some coconut bras is just a few extra holes. So anyways, you're going to need to get some coconuts from your local grocery store or wherever you might source coconuts. You're going to want to try and find the largest ones just because it's going to give you the most room for your plants and any sort of media you're going to include inside. I also kind of picked two different shapes, one being kind of tall and slender and the other one is just short and round. That way I can get kind of two unique looks. To get started, we're just going to take a hand drill and drill a hole in the top of the coconut. This is going to be the portion I'm going to cut off later, so make sure that's exactly how you do it because you don't want a random hole in your final planter. This is just to get rid of the juice beforehand because if we don't, it's going to make a massive mess. I was actually pretty surprised at how much juice really came out of these coconuts. I can see how people on deserted islands can survive off of these things because it's actually quite a bit. However, those sorry saps don't have a drill to get a nice hole, so they just have to smash it with a rock and hope for the best. Once you're done draining the coconuts, go ahead and have a refreshing drink and take a sip of that juice. I'm going to use a bandsaw because I have it at my disposal, but you can just use a regular handsaw for something like this. I started by taking a little bit off at a time just to get a general idea of like how deep it is and how wide the circle ends up being. Don't cut off a lot at first because you don't want to overdo it and then not have the desired shape you're after. Once you got the tops off, I'm really sorry guys, but this is the hard part, and that's getting all the coconut meat out of the coconut. It is actually quite a pain. I'm lucky and we have this weird curved blade that is never used in my house. It never has like a good use case because it's like a curved blade and I don't know what else to do with it, but for once in its lifetime it is absolutely perfect for this. I used the knife to first kind of scrape and cut away some of the meat to make it thinner, but then I slid the pointy part between the wood and the white stuff and just kind of like snapped away the meat. It actually breaks away very cleanly. You're going to want to make sure that you remove all the coconut meat because it's going to rot and cause problems with your plants, but again, with a little patience you can get it out of there. Those little 3 holes at the bottom are actually kind of thin and I accidentally pushed one through, but that's okay because it's going to end up being a drainage hole. I'm going to be using these planters for orchids, so I'm going to give them lots of like air holes and lots of drainage holes so my roots can breathe really well and my orchids don't suffer from root rot. On this first coconut, I want to do kind of like slits down the sides, so I'm going to drill like 2 holes per like area and then I'll connect them later with a saw. And I'm going to do that about 5 times around the whole thing, and I think that's about the look I want to go for. Once I got my upper and lower holes drilled, that's when I decided to connect them with the saw. So I'm going to cut like actual slits into this thing and try and connect the holes to each other and make gaps. You guys can do whatever you want for your configuration. This is just kind of what I want to do. It wasn't the exact shape that I kind of expected, so cutting into it was a little difficult, so I had to use files and other things to try and align it quite well, but in the end I think it turned out pretty good. I definitely suggest taking a file and running it over the holes, the slits, or whatever you decide to cut, just so it's not so rough looking and it looks a little more refined. It's definitely worth the little bit of extra effort. For my next coconut, I'm just going to do just a whole configuration without the slits. Now this actually was a little dangerous. I don't recommend doing it exactly how I did because sometimes that big drill bit really kind of caught into the coconut flesh and it really kind of wanted to jerk. So maybe start with smaller holes and like work your way up to be a lot more safer. And you might want to find a way to maybe vise it in because hand holding this stuff is a little risky. I really wanted to differentiate the two from each other to really see what kind of different configurations I could come up with. So the tall, skinnier one with just holes, I decided to sand all the roughness off and make it a little smoother. Once I was satisfied with the coconut configurations, I decided to add the holes for the strings. I'm going to do 3 just because it's a little easier to balance, but you could do 4, 2, even just 1 on one side so it hangs. Really, as many holes as you want to add to the rim, you can. Just make them big enough so you can put the rope through it. When drilling the holes for the ropes, make sure you don't go too close to the edge where you could break through the edge, ruining the hole. So give yourself about a 1/4 inch so that way you don't damage it. Here are the coconuts after I got done cutting, drilling, and sanding. I think they look really awesome already. However, the one I sanded looks a little funny, so I'm going to try something a little more extreme. We had some linseed oil in the basement, and so I'm going to try applying a little oil to this thing just to give it a really unique look. I'm pretty darn sure linseed oil is non-toxic, so I don't think it's going to really affect the plants. However, I'm keeping it on the outside just to make sure. After wiping it down good and then wiping away all the excess oil, I put it next to the other coconut, and I was actually really happy that I went and put the oil on there. They're totally distinct now, and the oil really brings out the darker color, kind of distracting away from the rough sanding that I did to it earlier. So I think it was like all for the better. This next part is really where you can differentiate it from a coconut bra or just 2 planters. If you tie these puppies together, you could probably strap them to your chest, but we're not going to do that. To finish this off, we're just going to tie some string to the holes that we drilled, and you can do this in any configuration you decided, whether it's like weaving it or whatever. I'm just going to do some basic stuff because I'm not too talented in that department. Now that the construction part is finished, I'm actually going to put some plants in these. I have 2 Phalaenopsis orchids that I got on clearance, and I'm going to put them in here with some sphagnum moss. Now, you can use sphagnum moss, you can use orchid bark, or mix the two. Whatever plant, I guess, that you decide to put in here, you should put the proper medium in there. Soil probably won't work too well because there's a lot of holes in it, but maybe you didn't drill a lot of holes, so it might work well for you. These actually fit in here quite nicely, and I hope they stay around this size. I'm not an orchid expert yet. Well, I probably won't be for many, many years, but I think they'll be good for a while in here, and I'm hoping that the roots will grow out of the holes that we drilled. That would be pretty neat looking, I think. Once I got it all potted up and the sphagnum moss kind of packed in there a little bit, I dunked it in water just so the sphagnum moss can actually absorb water and kind of expand a little bit, which would further secure the plant. Make sure you don't pack too much in here because you do want the roots to be able to breathe. Now it's time for the second one that I made, and this one I'm going to put the same kind of plant inside just because I think they'll look cool next to each other. I'm going to use the same sphagnum moss mix. However, this time when I kind of took it out of its like nursery pot, it's got this like weird spongy, I don't know what the material is, but it's kind of in the roots. I don't like it, so I first kind of tore it out of there and chipped it away, so that way it can just be in a sphagnum moss mix and not whatever that old nursery thing was. Just like the last one, once I got it potted up, I let it sit in some water so the sphagnum moss can absorb. And here they are all potted up. They absolutely look fantastic, at least in my opinion. I'm really happy I went in 2 different directions because I have 2 very unique potted plants, and they both have such awesome character. They're totally different and unique. I hope when you guys make yours, they look even better than these. The only bad thing is my room is not aesthetic at all, and I have like 2x4s and pink lights and just absolute horridness, but hopefully wherever you guys hang yours up, they look beautiful. Alright guys, that sums up this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you guys try and make this. I use power tools, but you could totally get away with this. Well, at least a drill, a hand drill you should probably have. But with just a regular saw, you should be able to cut the top off. It doesn't take too much. And even with a regular saw, you can cut the slits in like the other one. But anyways, guys, I really hope you try this. It's super cool. You can get coconuts at your local grocery store, eat the coconut meat, drink the coconut juice, and then make some hanging planters out of it. It's a win-win situation. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, may your plants grow strong and healthy. I'll see you next time.